Did you know that 60% of US young adults say their lives feel purposeless, and half of them say that it's harming their mental health? This comes from a recent Harvard On Edge report. It's based on a December 2022 nationally representative survey of US young adults aged from 18 to 25, and it's a call for clarity, hope, and real change. Today, I don't want you to feel lost. I've got 7 sustainable, psychology-backed ways for you to cultivate meaning in your life starting now. Welcome to episode 98 of the Grateful Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Wagoner. And before we get into the 7 ways, all I ask is that you subscribe to the podcast wherever you're consuming it, watching it, listening it. This makes sure that when you love this episode, as I'm sure you will, you don't miss any in the future. Okay, let's dive into this. First method, lean into deep relationships. When you strip your life down to its essence, one truth always emerges. Meaning comes through people. According to Harvard's On Edge report, nearly half of young adults say that their closest relationships are their greatest source of purpose. That makes sense. Think about it. When you've had your hardest days, was it an achievement that comforted you, or was it a person who stood by you? Psychologically, humans are wired for connection. Social bonds lower stress, improve immunity, and even increase lifespan. It's amazing. The absence of meaningful connection has the exact opposite effect. It's linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and even early mortality. That's how vital relationships are. They don't just make life better, they keep us alive. But here's the key, not all relationships are created equal. Scrolling through social feeds and keeping up with acquaintances is not the same as cultivating depth. Purposeful relationships are built on vulnerability, reciprocity, and trust. That means that showing up not only when it's convenient, but also when it's hard. It means calling someone just to listen, not only to talk. It means risking the awkwardness of saying, hey, you matter to me. So how do you lean in? You got to start small. Pick one relationship, just one that feels important, maybe a sibling, a friend, or a mentor, and ask them how they're really doing. Get deep. Then practice listening without waiting for your turn to speak. That single act creates a micro moment of meaning. Repeat it consistently, and those small deposits compound into a relationship that sustains you. Because life's too heavy to carry alone. And the paradox is this. By sharing your load, you don't burden others. You give them the gift of meaning too. Because connection is not a one-way street. When you strengthen relationships, you strengthen purpose, not just for yourself, but for both of you. 2, serve others even in small ways. You see, we live in a culture that's constantly telling us to focus on ourselves. Your goals, your image, your achievements. But ironically, the more inward that we turn, the more empty we often feel. And that's because humans were designed for contribution. We're designed to serve others. Even in small, ordinary ways, this creates a sense of purpose that self-centered living will never be able to do. The Harvard report found that about 13% of young adults find their deepest sense of meaning in serving others. It might be small, it might sound small, but it's massive when you think about it. Helping a friend with homework, holding the door for a stranger, spending an afternoon volunteering. Each one of these acts, it reorients your brain away from isolation and toward belonging. Psychologists call this the helper's high. When you serve, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin. Psychologists call this the helper's high. When you serve, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, the same feel-good chemicals that flow when we experience joy or love. It's a biological signal. Giving is not a burden, it's nourishment. But here's the trap. We think that we need to do something extraordinary to serve. We imagine starting a nonprofit, giving thousands or millions of dollars, or sacrificing huge amounts of time. But purpose is built in micro moments. When you pause your own chaos to be present for someone else, you step into meaning, even if it's just for an instant. Here's something practical. Every morning, ask yourself one question. Who can I serve today? Maybe it's texting a friend encouragement before a big test. Maybe it's noticing a cashier and saying, hey, how are you doing today? Maybe it's offering your time to a cause that matters. Small, simple acts stack into a life of meaning and impact. When you serve others, you don't just help them, you remind yourself that you matter. You see yourself as someone who contributes and doesn't just consume. And over time, that builds a resilient sense of purpose that nobody is going to be able to take away. Method number 3, crafting your narrative identity. Every one of us is living a story. The problem is most of us never pause to ask, who's writing mine? If you feel adrift in life, it might be because you're not being the author of your own narrative. Psychology shows that how we interpret our story shapes how meaningful life feels. The Harvard report points to three kinds of stories: your ideal story, the life that you dream of living; your ought story, the pressures you feel you should live; and your lost roads, the paths not taken. Purpose emerges when you become aware of these stories and choose which one you're going to lean into. Narrative psychology research suggests that the way we frame our past predicts our mental health and future motivation. For example, people who see their struggles as stepping stones to growth report higher levels of meaning than those who see themselves as the victims of circumstance. In other words, how you tell your story matters more than the events themselves. And here's how you can start. Take 20 minutes this week. I know it sounds like a lot, but trust me, just take 20 minutes to write out your life story so far. Highlight the challenges you've had and ask yourself, how did these experiences shape me? Then sketch out the future chapter. Who do I want to become? By reframing your setbacks as preparation and your dreams as possibility, you transform random experience into a purposeful narrative. You're thinking as yourself as the main character of a movie, and that is so powerful. It doesn't just mean ignoring your pain, right? Or pretending everything happens for a reason. It's you choosing to see yourself as active, not passive. Life isn't just happening to you, it's unfolding through you. And when you start to believe that, every day becomes a sentence in the story of a meaningful life. Method number 4, set other focused goals. We often think purpose comes from chasing our own dreams, money, status, success. But study after study shows that self-focused goals leave us empty once we reach them. This is because meaning isn't built by what we get, it's built by what we give. So this Harvard report, it highlights that when young adults set goals tied to serving something larger than themselves, whether it's community, the planet, or the people around them, they report much higher levels of life satisfaction and purpose. This aligns with the previous point, right, our second point, and aligns with decades of research in positive psychology. The most sustainable motivation comes when our goals are bigger than us. Think about it. When you achieve something purely for yourself, the joy fades pretty quickly. But when your work benefits others, it's a ripple effect that will never stop. You feel connected to a story beyond your own. And that's the difference between fleeting happiness and enduring purpose. So look at one of your current goals. Maybe it's trying to get into a certain college, land a job, build a business, and ask how you can orient this goal to serve someone else. Because honestly, you will have more motivation when you reframe your ideas to help serve other people. For my podcast, instead of I just want to grow a podcast, it's I want to share ideas that help people live more grateful lives, right? And when I think about it like that, it motivates me because I want to bring joy in other people's lives. Sometimes I'll get burnt out of trying to build something for myself, but I will never get burnt out of trying to bring more joy into others' lives. So it's also a little hack to get yourself more motivation. Method 5, practice active listening and mentorship. And man, is this important. One of the biggest misconceptions about purpose is that it comes from finding answers, but often it really just comes from being heard. The Harvard report notes that young people crave mentors and peers who don't just give advice, but who truly listen empathetically, without judgment, without rushing to fix something. And there's a psychological reason for this. Active listening, the skill of fully engaging with someone's words, tone, and emotions, signals belonging. When you feel heard, you feel seen. And when you feel seen, you feel that your life matters. That sense of mattering is one of the strongest predictors of purpose. Here's the beauty. You don't have to wait for the perfect mentor to show up. Actually, waiting for perfection is never really the right thing to do. You can begin practicing active listening today with the people around you. When your friend tells you about their bad day, don't jump in with at least statements or solutions. Instead, say, hey, that sounds hard. Tell me more. When your sibling shares a win, celebrate it without shifting the conversation back to you. those little acts of presence, they really ripple outward. At the same time, seek out people who do this for you. A teacher, a coach, parents, even someone a few years ahead of you that can provide guidance simply by reflecting back what they hear in you. You don't need someone who has it all figured out. You need someone who makes you feel like you belong. And remember, mentorship is a cycle. As you grow, you'll have chances to listen to others with the same patience you once needed. In doing so, you'll discover that meaning isn't always found in speaking louder, but in listening deeper. Because to hear and to be heard is one of the most powerful ways humans remind each other that life has purpose. Method 6, explore identity and values. Before you can live a life of purpose, you have to answer a simple but difficult question. Who am I? Many young adults report feeling aimless because they haven't clarified their identity and values. Without that clarity, every path feels equally uncertain. Psychologists call this identity exploration. It's the period of life where you experiment, reflect, and define the beliefs and values that guide your choices. The Harvard report stresses that this process isn't optional, it's actually essential. Young people who actively explore their identity report higher resilience, stronger well being, and deeper purpose. So, how do you start? You begin with reflection. Take 10 minutes to journal on questions like, what do I care about? What kind of person do I admire? Who would I fight for, even if it cost me something? These questions, they uncover the values that matter the most to you. And then you get to test them in real life. If you value creativity, commit to making something each week. If you value justice, get involved in cases that fight for fairness. Purpose isn't just about thinking who you are, it's about living it. Here's the catch though. Identity exploration, it can feel really messy. You might try on roles that don't fit. You might feel pressure from your ought story, what others expect of you, and that's okay. Purpose doesn't emerge from avoiding uncertainty. It emerges from engaging with it. Over time, I promise that your values, they'll become a compass. And they won't tell you exactly what tomorrow looks like, but they'll orient you toward a meaningful direction. And once you know your why, the what of your life, career, relationships, decisions, it starts to make more sense because purpose isn't about perfection. It's about alignment with who you are and how you live. And if you want to learn more about this from me, I offer one-on-one coaching sessions. You can book down in the description, or you can send me an email at jackcwagoner@gmail.com to book with me so we can talk this out for free if you need. The seventh method 7, embrace spiritual or transcendent practices. Finally, one of the most overlooked sources of purpose is about transcendence, connecting with something bigger than you. According to the Harvard survey, about 7% of young adults draw meaning from spiritual or religious practices. But you don't need to brong method 7. Embrace spiritual or transcendent practices. Now, I am not a religious person. I want to preface with that. But one of the most overlooked sources of purpose is transcendence, connecting with something bigger than you, not like the purpose we talked about earlier, where it was making your goals about something bigger, but connecting with something outside of you. And I'll get into it in a second because I know it sounds ambiguous. According to the Harvard survey, about 7% of young adults draw meaning from spiritual or religious practices. But you don't need to belong to a religion to experience transcendence. It can be found in meditation, in nature, in art, or even in moments of awe that stop you in your tracks. Psychologically, transcendent experiences, they shift your perspective. Whether you meditate, pray, or spend time under a vast night sky looking at the stars, your brain actually quiets its self-focused chatter. This quieting of the ego that meditation teachers talk about, it reduces anxiety and creates a sense of peace. More importantly, it reminds you that your life is part of a much larger story that you don't understand. That perspective is powerful. When we're consumed by daily stress, grades, work, social media, relationships, it's really easy to feel small and overwhelmed. But transcendent experiences, they lift us out of the noise. They remind us that meaning isn't only found in your productivity, it's found in being, in connecting, and in awe. So where can we begin? You just start with 5 minutes a day. You meditate, you pray if you're religious, you step outside, bare feet in the grass, notice the wind, the trees, the sky, listen to music that moves you. These aren't just hobbies, they're practices that ground you in a deeper sense of purpose. Because when you find that purpose, life just feels so much more magical. And here's the beautiful paradox: by losing yourself in something bigger, you don't disappear, you discover you. You realize that your struggles are real, but they aren't the whole story. You belong to something vast, and in that belonging, you find something extraordinary: meaning. Spiritual or transcendent practices, they're not about escaping anything. They're about entering it more fully. They give you perspective, resilience, and peace. And sometimes that's exactly the spark of purpose you need. So there they are, the 7 sustainable ways to cultivate more meaning in your life starting today. You got 1, deepen your relationships. You got 2, serve others, big or small. You got 3, shape your personal story. You got 4, set goals that go beyond you. 5, find and be a listener. You got 6, know who you really are. And 7, connect with something greater. Remember, 58% of young adults say they lack meaning. And those without it, they suffer nearly double the rates of anxiety and depression. So purpose is not fluff, it's essential. Pick one of these ways, start small. What relationship could you nurture? Which story will you write? What cause could you serve? Take that step, because even just one spark of meaning can change everything. And if you want help answering some of these questions, check out my conversation with former police officer turned podcaster and coach Jason Smith, episode 53. It's incredible. I'll see you there.